Madra John Madden in Veracruz, Mexico. I hesitated there so you could hear the waves. The waves are very soothing, and they have been soothing for me here in Veracruz way back to January and February when I was in a camper van and would park. Standing in my window in the Hotel Mari Tierra. That's the lower part of the front of the hotel. Beyond it is the street in front of the hotel. I would park my camper van right next to the waves there and find them very soothing. People like to say, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Yeah, if you don't deal with it, if you let the trauma stick and drag around behind you, it'll leave you battered and numb and less alive. So you have to pay attention to everything. You have to pay attention to everything that happens one at a time and give it good attention. So in the 2 months, let's see, March to almost 2 months since I left Veracruz, the beginning of March, a whole lot of things happened. I went up to the mountains, 3 hours west of here, to a magical pueblo called Orizaba. And I went there even though my plan was to head way out east to the end of the Yucatan. That was still looking like my final destination, Posible, out in the Riviera Maya, where I have a friend in Cozumel. But a young woman that I interviewed on the wharf down there one day spoke in Spanish about her hometown, Orizaba, which is officially a magical pueblo. So right around the beginning of March, I drove up there in my camper van. And it was a much harder trip than I thought it would be. It took all day and into the next day because that camper van had such terrible suspension. I had to drive slowly even on parts of the autopista. The best highways were too bumpy for it, and I was bumping all over. And had no air conditioning and bad brakes and bad transmission. It took a long time to get up there. But in Orizaba, I had magical experience after magical experience, punctuated by a couple of tough ones. I was arrested on a technicality that could have been okay, but they put a young kid in the cell with me who was no problem, street kid who was drugged out. He was no problem. But in a town that prides itself on a really finely oiled city government, and that is true, and a police force that is top of the line, and that is true, right next to me in my jail cell, one rogue jailer kicked the shit out of that kid just 6 feet away from me. That was extremely traumatic. But I paid attention to what had gone on there. I spent 11 hours in jail and then got let out because it was just a technicality. I promised that kid before I left I had made friends with him all day through the language difference, and said to him, I'm going to get justice for you. And as I was let out, he stuck his hand through the bars and gave me a fist bump and said, Amigo siempre, friends forever. And he'll never know that I did get justice for him, but I went to the Department of Tourism in a town that's all about smiles, Sonríe. Their motto is smiles, and it is a very enchanting town where everybody's happy. If you're not happy when you get there, you're happy for the weekend you're there. I went to the Department of Tourism, and the woman there who I knew gave me the number of the woman who was the head of human resources, who was amazing. And within a few days, that jailer had been very seriously disciplined. The only reason they didn't fire him, which I wanted, Two reasons were, one, because they were very humanistic and they didn't want to break his life if they didn't have to. They said, let's see, maybe we can rehabilitate him. We'll put him on a very short leash, reduce his pay, watch him very carefully, and make him get therapy. And the second reason they didn't fire him was because, and they explained this to me, he knows who reported him. You were the only one in the jail cell. You complained about it that day. If we fire him, he's got no reason to come after you. And I was very aware of that. I had said to them, please let me know when he knows that he's under investigation, because I'm going to leave town. So they said, he's on a short leash. He's got everything to lose if he comes looking for you. So you're safe. Stay in Orizaba. So that was very satisfying, incredibly satisfying. The other hard blow up there in Orizaba was that my camper van was stolen. I couldn't believe it. When a taxi brought me back to where it had been, I looked for it and looked for it. Another car was parked where mine had been. Well, that was not just my car, it was my home, my casa, for 2 years, and another camper van before that. It was my lifestyle, it was my identity. I was a camper van guy. I grieved a lot, and I still, almost every day, realize something else that was in that car that I'll never see again. But I grieved a lot, and grieved the loss of the lifestyle, and then said, you know, that car was an albatross. I've been feeding all my money into fixing it, and it still has huge problems. Maybe it's time to change my lifestyle. And I came back to Veracruz, which I love, and said, you know, let's forget about the Riviera Maya for now. Let's just plant my feet in Orizaba. And my best friends from here, Roxana and her family, said, there's an opening in our apartment building. You can probably get in there. And they talked to the landlord, and he said yes. But I couldn't get in on the day I thought. I had a whole lot of money on me to put down deposit and 1 month rent, and I couldn't get in. And no longer had money from friends to stay in the hotel. I couldn't both stay in the hotel and have money for the apartment. I went way south there to Boca del Rio. It's the rich neighbor. And there's a beach there, Playa La Bamba, which I love very much. I'd spent a lot of time walking on it. I'd taken a kayaking lesson there, swam in the ocean there. I loved it. And right next to it was the Punta Azul Hotel and the Harita de Oro restaurant, where Luis Cordoba had been a really good friend, and all the staff. I had so much fun with all the staff. So I said, I'm going to sleep on the beach. My friend Jim Griffin talks about 40 years ago when he was in Mexico sleeping on the beaches. And I know friends who would have said that's very dangerous. But it didn't feel that way to me. But it was. Turned out it was dangerous. And I got robbed. And all that money got stolen by two guys who were impersonating police, I'm sure, not actual police. That was very traumatic. That was very traumatic. And then I didn't feel safe on the beach, and I walked all night in shoes that were the only shoes left when my car was stolen, the shoes I'd been wearing that day, which never fit me very well anyway, and these are them. I took them out of the apartment today. I wasn't sure why, because I hate them. But it's occurred to me they might not hurt anymore. But I walked all night in those shoes. And as a result of walking all night in bad shoes, an old foot infection flared up on both feet, and I spent a whole day in the emergency room at the big Hospital Municipal, something like that. The the regional hospital, the poor person's hospital. And got discharged after about 11 hours. Very parallel to my jail experience. Nobody explained why they let me go after the doctor had been so worried about the foot infection. And they gave me antibiotics, and about 3 days later I said, I hate antibiotics. They kill all the good bugs. My body's a healing machine. So I stopped taking the antibiotics, and my feet and ankles have healed really well because I paid attention to them. You have to pay attention to every bit of it. I've been back to that beach in Boca del Rio to work through my trauma about it. It was still pretty traumatic, but I went, and I know it helped. Go, baby, on your motorcycle. Fun. He's having fun. So yeah, one thing after another. Could have had me beaten down, but tonight I was in the Oxo station that I love so much, just a couple blocks behind the hotel there, and I saw Celeste, who I had had a big crush on, and I saw Mari, Esther, who I'd had a big crush on, and the high school girls who tend to mesmerize me. And it was all easy. I'm leaving, I'm no longer attached to any of them. But it took some work along the way to let go of each of them and say, how realistic is that? Do you really want that? Is that going to serve both of you? So the final today was my landlord. It turned out the apartment was a nightmare. My friends moved out 2 weeks after I moved in because they said he was stealing, and he continually lies. I didn't believe them. Turned out he does. He conned me out of 600 pesos for a bed that I realized never was going to show up. He never got the water turned on. 3 nights ago, the electricity got turned off. So I made a series of videos overlooking this bay today about right action. Because the final when he lied yesterday about when I needed to move out, I screamed at him in public, which you don't do, and I knew there would be hell to pay. Came down here for my swim. I've been swimming every morning for the last 9 and getting so peaceful in this bay. I swim all over the bay. When I got back from my swim, he had stolen my iPhone. I have 2 iPhones. That was my old one with hundreds of videos that had never been posted to YouTube. Memories of my last 2 spectacular dogs. He stole it. And I spent the whole day paying attention to that.